Welcome to another episode of Behind the Strategy, a place for conversations, a place to find out and reveal all. What is behind your strategy?
And in this episode, I have... Wait, folks. Jo Howarth! Happy! Oh, you introduced me to the fact that there could be a happiness club. Jo, welcome.
Thank you so much. I think that's possibly the best introduction I've ever had on anything ever.
Well, the thing is this, like, we all need a ta-da, don't we? We all need an entrance. We rock up, we say our bit, we, rock back down again, and then what?
I'm a fan of a ta-da, definitely, 100%. Ta-da me all the time.
Yeah. So the reason I really wanted to have a conversation with you, Jo, is because there's a lot of stuff out there on the old interweb, isn't there?
Yes.
A lot of it, well, and there's a mixture of absolute total bollocks and some really cool stuff. And the fact is, how does anybody find that out, work it out? Because we like somebody, we do the whole, know, like, and trust, and we think we find people that are in alignment with our core values, right? And then all of a sudden, we find out that they're not. And that is a real shock, isn't it? That could be a real shock for people.
Yeah, it really can. And I mean, I've had that numerous times since running my own business, where you see someone on social media or online in some other way, and the image they present, once you've bought into what it is they do, isn't necessarily who and what they say they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does happen. It happens quite a lot.
So there are a lot of, I think we have to, when we are in business online, and you work with people in two different ways. You teach people something, and then you work with people. So you teach people to work with people in your hypnotherapy, don't you? So you get to work with people when they're quite vulnerable. You work with people who are learning something new and also wanting to set up online in business and have to navigate through the world as it is. And I bet the beauty of it, I bet the lovely bit is that everybody comes from different walks of life and different perspectives, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So, I mean, I work with one-to-one clients, and I work with, like you say, I train people to become hypnotherapists as well. So, and as part of the training, my students basically receive a lot of therapy from me and from the rest of the students, because it's a very practical course. So you learn on each other, basically. So yeah, we get people who are already coaches and counselors and already kind of do this kind of work, but want an extra string to their bow. And we get people who've never done anything like this and are looking for a career change. And yeah, it can be hard if you've never done this kind of thing before, especially if you choose to promote yourself online. Not everybody does choose to promote themselves online, and you don't have to, obviously. But it can be hard to be heard in that there is quite a lot of noise online, isn't there? So it can be hard to be visible, and it can be hard to be heard properly.
It is, and there's quite often a lot of theories that people subscribe to. I mean, you made a post, which is really what caught my attention, because I've worked with a lot of people in the spiritual industry. I still do. Everyone has their own different perspective, but it's the same as whether it could be a religion or spiritual or just beliefs. We all have our own core beliefs that we muddle through and go with. But depending on our, I'm going to say, self-worth and confidence, it depends on how much we are able to turn around and well, firstly, identify a load of rubbish. And secondly, think, well, I know this could be a load of rubbish, but I'm actually a bit fearful about not going along with it because of the consequences. And the post you made was about law of attraction. And there were some amazing discussions on that. The thread was brilliant, wasn't it? The comments were fantastic. Tell me what, you can obviously remember that post, but tell me, you started off by talking about how your you had one perspective, and then it shifted, and why?
So I've been a big follower of the law of. So I've been on my own personal development journey for a long time now, about 27 years, quite a long time. And so I think that's what happens really, isn't it? When you start looking at personal development and ways to help yourself, look after yourself, and I'm trying not to use the word improve, because I genuinely don't believe that there's anything wrong with any of us. So you don't need to improve, but we can grow and expand and develop, right? And so I've moved through different stages of personal development, and I'd been a follower of the law of attraction for a good number of years with very, very mixed results.
Okay.
Then my own journey went a step further in terms of my understanding of what this beautiful world actually is, and what the universe actually is, and who we actually are, and how that all works. And I realized from that step further that the law of attraction is a load of bollocks.
No.
Which is what I think I put in my post.
Well, you did, and that was definitely going to attract some attention. So the irony.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, this ties in beautifully with what we started with, right? We teach what we know at the time.
Yes.
So I've taught things that now I look back and think, oh my God, I can't believe I ever believed that. But at the time, I genuinely believed it. So it isn't always when we're online and we see these people spouting touting their wares and everything. It isn't always that they're pulling a fast one or talking shit. They can genuinely believe in what they are promoting in that moment. I've always genuinely believed in whatever it was I was promoting at whatever time I was promoting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically came to the understanding that, the law of attraction is based on the idea that your thoughts create your reality. Well, if your thoughts genuinely created your reality, then every thought that you've ever had, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, indifferent, every single thought that you've ever had would have manifested into this physical realm, and it hasn't. So, I've had a ton of negative thoughts, and I'm using negative in inverted commas. I've had a ton of, unwanted, difficult thoughts that have never come to reality. I've had a ton of beautiful, positive, in inverted commas, thoughts that have never come to reality. So if my thoughts create my reality, they should all be here. They should all be, I should have the car I want, the house I want, the money I want, the family I want, I should have all of those things that I've said that I want, but equally all the things that I've always said I don't want should have appeared somewhere, and they haven't. So for that very simple reason, it's easy to sort of discount it, if that makes sense. So that was the basis. Yeah.
It does make sense, because also there are people who would go the next step and say, well, you're not manifesting hard enough, and try this and do more growth. And, it's good if you don't recognize when you're, if you can't acknowledge that you're growing, you won't be able to look back and say, when I talked that, this is how I felt, and now things have changed. It means you're open-minded. I see that as being open-minded. You're embracing growth and finding out new information. I think that's a positive. I think we should be hopefully teaching new things as we go through, because that we all evolve, things change, that laws, not just laws change, trends change, generational change. So, because I responded on the post thinking, well, actually, there is something, from my perspective, there is something which says that how we are will attract or repel. So at its very core, it's about dissecting the terminology of a law of attraction in its purest form, or should we also be mindful that we are likely to attract and repel in general? So what I'm saying, you know what I mean? If I get up in a really shitty mood, right, and the door knocks, and the guy that, from the delivery has left it, it's pouring with rain, and he's left it run down the path, right? If I started shouting and go out of the door, right, guarantee why not get the next lot of parcels? Just saying, isn't it? Because, we are naturally drawn or repelled to things that give us comfort we like, or things that repelled from discomfort of things we don't like. So there is that element to it. But I guess what we're talking about here is when that crosses a line, when it impacts on how people are feeling that they have to be online or offline. But let's talk about the online world for the moment, because it's easy to hide behind words online. It's easier than standing in the post office queue, isn't it? You actually face it. People aren't going to suddenly turn around and say this thing to you in a post office queue, whereas they might say it online. People, we all, hide behind that. But there are people who say, well, this is where I've had a problem with it, right? Not from you should be able to just think it into reality, and if you just try hard, almost it. But it's that if you try hard enough, that just grows.
Well, this is what I think issue with, because that's it. Basically, what it's saying to people is, doing it wrong, you're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. That's the underlying message. The way you're doing it is wrong. The way you're growing is wrong. The things you're doing are wrong. You're not doing it right. You're wrong. That's what I take issue with. Is that actually quite a lot of the teaching around it basically implies that we're wrong. And for me, actually, what I believe these days is that and I have for a long time, there's nothing wrong with anybody. Just, if we're not entirely where we want to be in life, or being who we entirely want to be in life, all it means is that we've learnt some programs that aren't doing us any favors. That's it. It doesn't mean that you're wrong as a person. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And that's what I take issue with the whole thing, is that it implies that people are fundamentally wrong, and we're not.
No, because one of the reasons I've struggled with it when I've had a conversation with somebody and I've said, okay, and this is where we get into comparatinitis, isn't it? So if you're a single parent with 1, 2, 3, 4 kids, I've had 3, you have 2, and we're not not just using that as an example, because that is us. Mine have left home now, but I'm just not going to forget all those years. There were certain things that people just didn't get. And unless you've been through that situation, or you have the type of empathy and understanding where you do get it, it's like, well, this person, this single mum, what she did was she made $1 million business in her kitchen table, and she did this, that, and the other. And so therefore that means that every single mum should be able to do it because she did. And it's like, okay. And then you hear that person's story, and maybe they did come from rags to riches. Maybe they did have something similar. Maybe they were worse off. But there's always something, whenever I go deeper into anybody's stories, there's always something which gave them an element of support that is not usually there for people in the same situation. And that one little thing, or, you know what I mean, made the difference, and it gets brushed away and overlooked. And people don't realise that. And so that it's not, you feel less than.
And that's it, right? And I mean, the idea is, I guess, that those people are there to inspire us.
Yes.
To show us what is possible.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're absolutely right. There's a couple of coaches I know that, have done the multi-million-pound thing, and it looks like, and they say they've done it in 3 or 4 years, from scratch. And when you look into their backgrounds, actually, they started their business with contracts in their pocket from the work they'd done before, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, you're right. There's normally something that is different to somebody genuinely starting their company from scratch, or their business from scratch. So it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because the inspiration part of it is awesome, but as human beings, what we do is the comparisonitis thing. And you're right, we end up feeling less than. Why did it happen for them and it's not for me? I must be rubbish.
Yes, and I don't want to take, and either of us do. I know this because you're a very, person with a huge heart. Neither of us want to take away the hard work that people have had to go through. Regardless, that's not what I'm about. Absolutely, because everybody has their own struggle. What is difficult for one person could be easy for somebody else, and vice versa. But there's always something. And what I guess I mean as well is if you look at it. If I look at, say, let's just say that is that one person, and I think, they had this bit of support, which maybe most other people did have. So, for example, the majority of single parents, right? The majority of single parents are still in contact, and therefore the children are between the two. Now, I'm not saying that's not without his own issues. That's obviously. But what I'm saying is there are times when they are having some space, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's a good or bad, or for whatever reason, there is some space. Yeah. And then, but I didn't have that at all because they weren't there. There are other people, single parents, who didn't have that partner for whatever reason. Maybe they died. Maybe they left and vanished. Maybe they were imprisoned. For whatever reason, just that, little things like that gets overlooked because the majority do have this. And do you know what I mean? So it's even, and then you're made to feel, well, I remember I was thinking, well, just try harder, do more hours. You think, how many freaking hours can I do? How you know what I mean? How you can't, because here's the thing: when you're trying to, if you're told that you can think things into existence and attract, the more you try to go for something with that view, I don't think that it always opens the mind up to other opportunities around you. And I think you can, it might open you up seeing more ways on how you could achieve what you want. But I think it also narrows your focus and you could miss other things. I don't know.
That makes sense to me. I totally agree. For me, the way that life has become for me now is about moving into a place of acceptance.
Yes.
Whatever is in front of me in that moment, and allowing whatever is in front of me in that moment to unfold, to try my best. And I don't always manage it because I'm a human being, but to try my best to not put too many expectations on things that I have a go at, to not attach to the stuff that I'm trying to achieve too much, which I find really difficult, because obviously if you want to achieve something, you want it to work, so there's your attachment to it. But actually what I'm working on for myself right now is to release that attachment, to release those expectations, and to allow whatever comes to me to come to me, to allow it to unfold in front of me, rather than trying to force and push and effort it into existence, if that makes sense.
No, it does make perfect sense, because having an ADHD brain, I can actually easily let things go. I can also hold on to things too tightly. It's all or nothing. So, for example, people, if you don't just lose your keys or your glasses, they sort of cease to exist. You forget you even have them. You know what I mean? But it's the same with people. I can be the best friend ever, but then if we haven't seen each other for a while, I can pick it up 3 months later, 3 years later, like it was yesterday, because my time thing's gone. And because for a while, they said right in front of me, I forget they exist, because an ADHD brain, well, mine does especially, struggles to connect with the future me, the consequences. So from that perspective, I can let things go. I'm not afraid to fail. I will do this. The point is, I just don't want to, because it makes me feel bad. Quite frankly, I don't want to. But and the growth for me has had to be learn when to let things go, because, well, there's no point in doing this. I will carry on. And I've had to accept, and this is where other people's core values get imposed on us, right? Are you a quitter? Why'd you give up on everything so easily?
But again, right, what's that doing? Making you wrong. It's making you feel like you're wrong in some way.
Yeah. And yet every rag to riches millionaire, guru, people have worked incredibly hard to get where they are. They've had to try 20 million things before they've worked it out, because if everybody got it right first time, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation about attraction and what we attract, because the thoughts would have put it into reality, which is what you said to start with.
Yeah, exactly that.
So what do we do about that?
So again, for me, it's really about understanding that there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. You are who you are and how you are because of the programs that you've learned when you were Diddy. You can absolutely change those. Sometimes it takes quite hard work to change them. Sometimes it doesn't. Or you can keep them exactly as they are. That's totally your choice. Either way, there's nothing wrong with you. But having that understanding that you've learned to be who you are and how you are is massive, I think. Just having that understanding, regardless of whether you decide to do anything with it and take it a step further or not. Because then you can recognize those patterns when they come up, right? You can recognize those programs. And when you recognize them, when you have that understanding, you can just accept them rather than beating yourself up for it, which is what we tend to do as human beings too, right? We beat ourselves up.
We do. We blame ourselves.
So again, that feeds into that piece about acceptance that I was talking about before. It's about accepting ourselves as well, right? It's really about, one of the things that I have come to in the last couple of years is really accepting that I am me. That sounds really silly.
No, it doesn't sound silly at all. Yeah.
Accepting that, do you know, that coach over there might have done X, Y, and Z and made £1 billion and brilliant, and I'm very pleased for them and hurrah. Yeah. I'm not them. And that therapist over there might have set up this service that's gone sky high and done what I'm aiming to do with my company. And that's brilliant. And I love it. And I use it as an inspiration. And I try very hard not to allow it to say anything about me, because I'm not them. I'm me. And I'm on my own journey, and I'm learning whatever I need to learn in order for me to live the life that I'm here to live. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, we are literally spending most of our times struggling to come to terms with our own existence, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Good Lord, I exist. Okay. Now what? What should I do here? Just put mask.
Yes, that's it. Exactly right. We're told from being Diddy that we're wrong in some way, in lots of ways. I was told tons of ways that I was very wrong from the word go, right? So then we spend our time trying to fit in with other people that we think have got it sorted, that we think have got it sussed, when actually the older you get, the more you learn, the more you realise nobody's got it sussed.
I know.
No person on this planet has got it sussed.
Yeah. And when they say to you, what would you tell your younger self? Do you know what? I don't really think it matters, because I probably wouldn't have taken any notice. If I'm totally honest, honestly, the only thing, if I'm truly honest, Jo, that if somebody had given me or told me in the winning lottery numbers, I'd be like, thanks. That's it. Honestly.
Nice. Yeah.
Because you don't. It does take all this time. And it's almost like we're all surprised. And yet, actually, we've been told this. Everybody knows that you do become wiser as you get older, in different ways. You are going to have learned more. You have to have done, by default. And you're going to be more set in the ways. Yes, because I now know what I like, and that's what's happening. It's like we knew all that, but we just kept, I don't know that we took it seriously until it started happening. There are things I won't put up with now that I would have just let go, 20 years ago, but I don't put up with now. So I just think, I really can't be freaking bothered.
No, that's it, right? I think one of the best questions I was ever given, and it really was by myself, but it is hugely used now, was the reason I first went into therapy when I was 25 was because my biological dad passed away very suddenly. And from that moment on, the question that was in my head was, does it matter? Does it actually matter? I found that things that used to wind me up, things that I used to get upset about, things that I used to get frustrated about, things that I used to really worry about, if I used that question, 99% of them just melted away, because I realized that it doesn't matter, actually. That's not
Yeah,
what matters, right? These
yeah.
things we spend half our lives worrying about, that's not what matters.
No, that's brilliant, because I just did a podcast episode with Adam Faulkner. He's an amazing guy, and he was saying that he what he does for himself and suggested was the 10 by 10 method that he said he uses, which is this going to matter in 10 minutes? Or is this going to matter in 10 days? Is this going to matter in 10 years? And it's exactly that, isn't it? It's about putting some, that spin on it. I always say, well, what is the worst that could happen? Really, what is the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And now it feels like it could be the end of the world. When you're a teenager and your boyfriend dumps you, what's the worst that could happen? I'm going to just die. You feels like that. But you start learning that that's not the case. Do you know what I mean? That's not the case. And I wonder how much of our emotional resilience we have as we've come from other people's core values that we've been conditioned into, that we've never even considered challenging.
Yeah.
And I think it's about how do we even identify that? And then I have to, that's always been a big question. And it's when there's a clash, when you're constantly feeling they just don't get me. That's what I think. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I agree. And, when I talk to people about the beliefs they hold in their subconscious mind all the time, right?
Yeah.
And when I teach them about where those beliefs come from, I say to them, look, 99% of the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious mind aren't yours. They're not yours.
Yeah.
There's mums and your dads and your grannies and your aunties and your teachers and all the grown-ups that were around you when you were a diddy have given you those beliefs about yourself, about the world, about other people. 99% of them don't even belong to you. They don't originate with you. And yet we grow up carrying them through our lives with us. Again, that's a really powerful thing to ask yourself. Whose belief is this?
Yeah, because we measure our value by that, don't we? And that's why we measure our success, our value. And the longer you carry it, the harder it is to let go, because it doesn't matter if you... I found that there are some things that I've learned about myself. I've been, from therapy or books or groups or whatever it is. And I know all that. I know that not to be true. But still, something in the back of my head, I actually have to battle with. I have to question. Am I right? Was that, because it's there, it's so ingrained, and it's very, very difficult to. It's like, let's just say you've had really long hair, and then you just have it all chopped off. You're going to be looking at a different person in the mirror, and that's quite. It's like it's going to be like, it's going to take you aback, and you have to. It has to fit. You have to test it all out, isn't it? And I guess it's about finding evidence. The brain always wants to go off and find evidence to justify things, doesn't it? And I think, we have to look for evidence. We have to have a little thing in our head that says, right, okay, I'm thinking this. I know this is not true, but why am I still allowing it to get to me? And obviously there's a myriad of answers to do that, obviously. And everybody's different in how that could be, I think, because I always remember, I remember when I was about 8, realizing that there was something wrong with all the adults, right? Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's early. Not most people don't realize that when they're 8.
I remember it. I actually remember it. I've talked about this quite a lot. And I realized, right, well, what are we going to do about that? So I would test it and I would think things. And I had sort of convinced myself that I was always right, and because evidence kept presenting itself, even in the craziest of ways, right? And so but I wasn't allowed to be. I wasn't allowed to show my opinion wasn't valid. And all I was doing, what I realize now, was that it wasn't that I was always right. It was the fact that I was able, from quite young age, to always see a different perspective. I've always been able to weigh things up and see different perspectives, and also take into consideration everybody's views and opinions. Now, when you're in a situation as a child, as an adult, with any situation, an opinionated person is not interested in you trying to show them someone else's perspective. And that took me a long time to learn. Took me a long time to learn that.
Such a valuable lesson, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Really valuable. Really valuable.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it can be scary as well, that kind of journey, because the scariest thing for a lot of people, which is why we get entrenched in these beliefs and hold on to the conditioning, because the scariest thing to human beings is change.
Yes.
Fear of the unknown, right? Because
fear of the unknown, yeah.
This is how I want to be, and yes, this is how I want to feel, and yes, this is how I want to think. But actually, I've never thought, felt, and been like that before. So if I change into that, who will I be? Like you say, looking at that other person in the mirror, who will I be? And what if that's not right either, right? What if that's not? What if I do all of that and I'm still not happy or whatever I want to be? And so it's safer. It's the whole better the devil you know thing, isn't it, right? It's safer to stay where we are, even though we're not incredibly happy there, because at least we know it.
Yes. No, that's true. That's very, very true. Yeah, because I think that how we learn to get there, I mean, what happened, I suppose, in my situation was that I was always the victim because it was always the others. So I didn't realize that I had, by default, slipped into that sort of perspective. And what that did was it took away my sense of ownership of decisions and choices and free will. And so I used to, and I'm not the only one that's done that. You are incredibly overwhelmed and, always have to do something somebody else's way, or getting cross because other people haven't done it your way. And I sort of started to recognize that as I got older and realized that, okay, that may be, but I can't prove that. There are situations that you're in that you can't just suddenly make that $1 million business in your kitchen just because other people are holding you back. You've either got to make it, if you truly believe it, regardless of whether you have support or not, do it. But it took a long time for me to accept there were lots of things I could have done, but I didn't for whatever reason. And I always blamed everybody else. And then I blamed myself for letting everybody else. And it's this big cycle, isn't it? It's like, maybe I should have just tried harder. It's like, no, I'm not getting back in that loop.
No, you see, because one of my favorite things to say to my clients and the members of the Happiness Club is, are you doing your best? Yeah. And they'll start going, oh, well, no, I don't think so, because obviously I haven't got what I want yet, and I haven't because no. And the answer to that question is always yes. Always. Always, always, always. Are you doing your best? Yes. How do you know that? Because if you could do anything else, you would.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
even wherever you've come from, whatever you've experienced, whatever you've learned, whatever conditioning and programming you are experiencing and living with, are you doing your best? 100% every second of every day. And yet beat ourselves up. I should do better. I should do more. No, because if you could, you would be.
Yes.
So right now, whatever you're doing is your best.
Yeah.
No,
I love that. It's like that old thing, isn't it? I'm just doing 110%. Well, I thought 100%. Why are you adding all these extra bloody just keep pushing the boundaries for crying out loud.
There's a lovely meme that goes around on social media that says, if you wake up one morning and you can only work to 47% of your capacity, I don't know what the percentage is, if you can only work to 47% of your capacity, you are still giving 100%.
Yeah.
Because that's as much as you can give that day.
Oh, like that. Now, do you know, that's a game changer.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That is absolutely a game changer, because especially for, well, anybody, but especially for ADHD brains, because I can give so much and do so much, and then all of a sudden the next day I just can't. I get this paralysis, and then all the shoulds come in, and I had a fantastic episode of talk about shoulds with Deborah Seneforth. And yes, that makes so much sense. It's about just accepting where we are right now. I mean, this is what I try and preach, I guess, and it's what I'm creating all the the lab for, and all the things that I'm doing. It's about just getting rid of all the clutter. Do you know what? You don't need all that. If you do, you can get it back again. It's not like it's going to disappear. If you really want to feel awful every day, you can easily do that. It's fine. But just for today, let's try not to get rid of all the clutter and see what that feels like. It's going to maybe feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's going to be a relief. Whatever happens, it's exactly what you said earlier. It's about change, and we embrace change that we can be excited about change that we have control over, but not so much as somebody else has. So I think it all comes back down to, we all want to believe and like to believe that we are in control of ourselves, our life, and what happens. We are in control. There are things outside of our control. So how we respond and deal with that, we are in control of, right? But if somebody, I believe a lot of us start falling down when the panic, the fear kicks in when we don't know what we need to know to feel in control.
Which is that fear of the unknown thing that I mentioned before, right? That's the scary thing. Is, well, what if I can't? And what if I don't? And what if it doesn't? And what if it does? And what if? Yeah. Which is where the whole acceptance thing comes in. Let's just, I'm going to do this right now because that's what feels like it makes the most sense to me right now. And then you just take the next obvious step, the next step and the next step. Instead, I think I've just done a daily strategy for the members of the Happiness Club about trying to work out how everything's going to happen and how it's all going to unfold and how the whole story is going to be before any of it's actually happened. And that's what we spend our time trying to do.
Yeah.
We have no idea. Literally, the truth is, doesn't matter how well planned or structured you are, we have literally no clue what's going to happen next, ever.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen. We could just fall over. You don't plan for that. I didn't wish for that. I wouldn't think that into reality. I'm not attracting falling down a step and hurting my knee. Are you?
No, but it could be, right? Literally anything could happen. That's what my dad's passing taught me in Spain. Yeah. It can happen anytime, anything. And I'm not trying to scare people by saying that, right? It literally is. You live your entire life never knowing what's going to happen next. And yet, look how amazing you are, because you've made it through every single frickin' day.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. Yeah. And sometimes it is just literally, if all you can do is just something small, that is the 100% that you are able to give.
Exactly.
It's not actually 47%, is it? It's just, you're not, we always like to have this level, like, this is me at full capacity. I don't know that I actually know that anymore. Because every day is different when you actually pare it back down. And I think that sort of brings me nicely to one of the things that's really helped me, which, you might not know this, but you've done for years now, you have done the post where you've took your GLADs, right? Where you've talked about the GLADs. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest here. When I very first saw them, I was like, freaking heck, this is going on a bit, isn't it? You know, right? And I was like, genuinely glad for you that you were glad. And it was I was like very pleased for you. I was very glad for you. And I was like, why don't you, what's all this about all the GLADs? It took a little while to kick in, right? It took a bit of a while to kick in. I've always, I was thinking about, the gratitude and how it can help. Putting all that aside, on a logical, practical level, what it actually did was every time I saw it, and whenever I've seen a post like that, it reminded me of some of the things that I'm glad about. That's all. And, and I was like, okay, right, put this into perspective. It's very inspirational, right? I might not read all the whole list. That might not be the point. And I believed I missed the point, right? Because it was a teaching thing. It was a showing thing. It was you see something often enough, it starts to infiltrate into your psyche, and you start thinking, oh, actually, well, what am I glad about? Crikey, she's glad for a lot of things. Well, have I got that many things? And you start pulling things in just for a couple of minutes. Even if there's an acknowledgement, you go, I'm not really glad about anything today, I'm scrolling past. You're acknowledging how you feel based on that. And just please don't stop doing them.
Well, I have no intention. I don't manage it every night because some nights
I do. Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly the intention behind sharing them. Obviously, I'm writing them for myself because it's an exercise that I do for myself. But I share them publicly on Facebook and LinkedIn because exactly that. Because, and I know some people read them, and I sometimes get comments on them going, "Bloody hell, love, you've gone on a bit, haven't you?"
Yeah.
Which is fine, right? It's like, yeah, all right, Jo, we get it.
Yeah. No, someone put that comment on. I mean, that's the
No, and I'm fine. If that's how people respond to them, that's totally fine with me, because I'm not doing it. I'm doing the exercise.
No, yeah.
I'm also doing it to say to for that exact reason, right? To hopefully make people stop and think, okay, what am I glad about from today? Whether they share them on the post or not, some people do share in the comments, and most people don't. But for me, the important bit is they've gone, oh, yeah. I wonder what I'm glad about. I wonder what's happened for me that was ace today, right? That's the point.
It is. And the point, and it's just good to remember that everybody is different. We're all glad about different things. There's always something out there you can be thankful for. And even if you can't think into existence that car, Jo, really sorry about that. I'm going to probably wind up your cat now. Your cat is probably thinking of these, isn't it?
He's just jumped off my lap now.
He's like, should he give any treats? Saw a post this morning. What's the most unusual thing you have on your desk? And everyone was putting some odd little things. And I was like, well, to be fair, the only unusual thing on my desk that you wouldn't have in a normal traditional office would be cat treats and a cat. That's it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Jo, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I just think we've covered an awful lot. We could talk all day, I'm sure.
I'm sure we could. It's been lovely being on. Thank you so much for asking me.
No, but thank you for being willing enough to just have conversations about those things and just challenge. We're not necessarily just challenging it. We're sharing our perspective. And I guess what we're both saying is, challenge your own perspective, everybody. You know, just our way isn't the only way. Your way is your way. Your way that for you is the way, isn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and on that, we should go on our way. Thank you so much, Jo.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Strategy. I hope you enjoy listening to the next one. Please subscribe so you get notified of when that's published. And if you'd like to find out more, please pop over to thestrategysuccesslab.com. And please do share this with anyone who you think might need this today.